Hey guys, it's Jessica Fury, host of Dumb Girl Podcast. Tune in every Monday for new episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome back to Dumb Girl Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Fury. Today we have Brandon Miller. He is a title rep with Fidelity Title. So I'm just going to tell you a story about Brandon before I give him a chance to even talk on the mic. So when I got into the business, I started at Keller Williams, and this guy, Brandon, would be there. And then I went to a different firm, and now being with the agency, I was at a meeting, and every Tuesday at my office meeting, this person next to me is at this meeting. So I'm on the phone with one of my friends, and now I've been in the business for about 2 years, still seeing this guy. And I'm like, wait, I was on the phone with one of my friends, and I was like, hey, I have a really weird question. Like, there's this guy, and I saw him at another office. Like, who is he? Who is he? I was like, who is he? Oh, Brandon, the title rep? Oh yeah, I know Brandon. He's the best. I was like, oh, that's why he shows up at all the meetings. And I literally have to start my episode with that story and by saying, if you are an agent, a title rep, a lender, an escrow officer, someone in any type of business of real estate, networking like Brandon is will be money to your business. And I say that because I've been seeing this random person show up at all these offices. And Brandon, I applaud what you're doing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Wait, so why do you do that?
You know, it's like, just like as an agent, and a lot of people do confuse me as an agent because if they see me and they say hi to me and they look at me, we haven't had the formal introduction, they'll just think I'm a colleague of theirs in their office until they do meet me and see what I do. But just like you have to get out there and be known, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and we need to show up in our business. So we remind agents, you know, and things happen so fast in real estate, there could be a need for something title related. I need to write an offer, but I need to know who the owners are. Let me pull a property profile. Oh, look, there's Brandon right there. Hey, Brandon, come here. I have a pending transaction. You know what, Brandon? I'm going to write you in. Let's see if we can get the deal going. So showing up goes a long way in our business because it's like triggering reminders, especially for those where we don't have that like long-term relationship where we're already ingrained in our clients' heads. But for people that maybe don't have that long-term relationship yet, that's where the opportunity is, and those opportunities are everywhere, every day. And so I like to be outside. I like talking to people. I can't like just sit still and be behind a desk. Like COVID was so tough because I'm like, fuck, I need to get out of here. So like as soon as like they started lifting some of the things, I know there was a lot of people in general, agents, title, escrow lenders, they still didn't quite get out there. They got used to working from home. I was like out the door. I'm like, I'm gonna go, whether people are in an office or not, I'm still gonna go chat, say hi, and catch up and stuff. So that's why I'm always around.
But were you always that way in the business, or did you learn from someone else who had said to you like, hey,
Right.
If you want to like be a little bit more successful, I don't want to say a little bit more successful in your business, but if you want to be getting a little bit more transactions, more business, more volume, go to the meetings, like, or you just did it
Right.
on your own?
Super good question. So I've always had amazing mentors, including my boss now, who has managed me for 17 years. His son is my assistant, and I try to mentor him just because of the relationship I have with my boss. And he works harder than anyone I know, especially in our business, and he's always moving around. I mean, he even had a driver for several decades so he can work in a back behind a computer and go from Long Beach to Beverly Hills to Westlake Village, wherever. I watched that had an influence on me, but you know, before you find your career, you try out different things. And I was always the type who felt like I needed to just be kind of moving around, interacting, not so much like behind a phone cold calling, because I've done that too in different forms in different industries. So when it came to title, I'm like, oh wait, so agents, they're always kind of moving around, they're in their offices, it's kind of like an open house. I can just walk in, no appointments, just kind of like interact and make friends. I'm like, it just came so natural to me. That's where I found myself in this industry, and I was like, oh, this is me. So
Yeah.
a lot of it was me.
Oh, but that's cool.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
the other industry that you were in?
So prior to title, first of all, my parents were both more or less in real estate. My dad was a real estate attorney, had a commercial business doing syndication. He actually wrote a book called Real Estate Syndication. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll kind of work with my dad, although I knew there's no way I can actually work with my dad. We'd just bump heads and it wouldn't be fun. So I just got to know his business, and we gave it a try for a couple weeks. And I'm like, and then my aunt, she was a big realtor down in Irvine, Orange County, and she had a really good friend who ran Orange Coast Title, which is a big title company down there. She's like, my aunt said, Brandon, you'd be so good in title. I'm like, well, what is title? And I'm like, she told me, I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And like, she made the introduction. I hit it off with this lady named Cherie, the manager, and she's like, we don't have anyone in Beverly Hills. We're really good in Orange County. Brandon, I'm gonna put you in Beverly Hills. She kind of just hired me without me even asking, or it was just like not even an interview. It was like, she felt me, I felt her. She knew my aunt, that was good enough. And she's like, I'm throwing you in Beverly Hills. At the time, we had expense accounts, and we can do a lot more things that we're kind of more handcuffed into doing now. But she literally just gave me an expense account saying, go get to know people, take them out to lunch, take them to Dodger game, Laker games. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah. It's like, how can I say no to that? Mm-hmm. So I kind of organically found it that way through my aunt, who I'm very grateful for that introduction. And it just kind of happened organically, so I'm glad it did.
Yeah. For people that are listening that are either newer in real estate, what is title? And
right.
And I learned this from one of the title reps that's also a friend of mine. She said to me these exact words, mm-hmm. Do you know how much money title reps can make agents? Because a lot of times people don't turn to title reps
right.
to help their business. They just
right.
see them as someone who's going to help with title on property.
Right.
So can you also talk more about that?
Yeah, so it's so easy for people to kind of forget how we do make our money, and at the title industry is built on helping a real estate transaction close. So our number one source of business are the realtors, but there's also maybe attorneys out there who work with title reps, or very rarely you'll see a buyer or seller know a title rep. So you don't see a lot of advertising to the general public about us, because we're never going to get business that way. But you guys are, that's who we want to be around, that's who we advertise to. And so we cannot get into a transaction and have that opportunity to close it and therefore get paid unless we have our friendly agents and our friends and clients to get into escrow. So it's such a great dynamic, because if you don't win, we don't win. So how can we help you win? And so that's where it's like a win-win relationship, where we can help bring value to you using all these amazing tools that title has, especially because we're the ultimate source for public records, and we know how to take all that information and create like really cool, resourceful ways to target prospects, homeowners out there to help get you more business. So title in general, we have a lot of tools, and our company being the largest, they spend a lot of money on like technologies and stuff. They'll even buy companies that already have the technology, and everything we do is for helping realtors. So that's kind of like, actually that's my favorite part of the business.
Helping a realtor.
Yeah, because it's like my marketing cap, like let's put on my agent cap, what can we do to help you? And 30% of my time is on the side of the road in my car saying, okay, how can I put out this fire in a transaction that may not be title related, but somehow title can play a role in helping get to the finish line. But it's only fun when it's resolved. But of course, just like real estate stressful, there's a lot of different nuances that come with that. But the fun part is like sitting down like this and like, hey, what are we going to do for the last quarter of this year? Because we know the holidays, things are going to slow down. So between now and Thanksgiving, there's definitely some like timely marketing pieces that we can help put together for you, so you can go out there and try and stir up some business.
And what would those things be?
I like, before you know it, it's going to be Halloween, really Thanksgiving. So every time a few weeks before Thanksgiving, that's like the one time of year I've noticed people all over are very generous. They want to like give back. That's kind of why we get together to begin with on Thanksgiving. So when agents can choose their like sphere of influence, all the people they know, or pick a random neighborhood that they've been wanting to break into and let the neighborhood know they can help collect donatable products, food cans, perishable items, and then that would be something you want to donate to the local shelters, whatnot. So by you hitting the streets with a great message saying, at this time of year you want to help out those who are in need, you're going to take that role on. Maybe you have a flyer that goes on a Trader Joe's bag, you staple it on there saying, on this date and that date, I'll be riding around a neighborhood picking up anything you'd like to donate, or you can call me, Jessica, and I'll come pick it up, and then it'll go directly to the shelter, and you can get a little tax benefit from it if you like. But
I love that.
Yeah, every year it's like, if I were an agent, which I'm not, I've been doing it 20 years, I'm not even licensed to sell real estate, I would do that every year.
I did that a few years ago with socks.
With socks?
With socks.
Yeah.
So I come
That's
from
great.
a background of like wellness and fitness.
Uh-huh.
And I've worked with like different celebrities and production studios, and so a lot of the production studios every year, they would have a drop box of either soup or clothes, not like soup, but like canned goods. And one of my clients, I told her that I wanted to do something to like give back.
Yeah.
And she said that the Midnight Mission. So the Midnight Mission is downtown. It's actually on Skid Row. I drove to Skid Row after 10 plus years being in LA. This Pacific Palisades girl drives to Skid Row, and I was like, what the fuck?
I know.
I was like, what is
It's
this?
so eye-opening. It's crazy.
Yeah, I almost feel like, I've never been there after 10 plus years of LA.
You hear the word Skid Row, but
like,
you don't really know what it is until you see it.
Yeah, so I did socks because I was told that socks is one of the like top 3 things to give to homeless, because most of them are not wearing shoes or wearing like socks. So socks has always been like,
great.
So that's what I did. I did socks, but yeah, Skid Row was like, it puts things into perspective.
Big time.
Like it really just puts things into perspective, and it kind of just gives you a chance just to be like, all right, what can I do to like be in service to people? And I think of that every single day. I'm like, what can I do to be in service to another person?
Yeah.
And you've provided so much service to realtors, and I would love for you to get a little bit more specific on how realtors can turn to you. And I've done this with my title reps, Tamara.
Yeah,
she's someone who's really helped me, but like farming my specific area. And then I was also told you can then farm recently deceased, you can do ages. So what are some of the specifics that agents can turn to a title rep to do?
Great question. It's interesting because now the market, we've never really seen a market like this. High interest rates, people who have owned for a while have low interest rates, not motivated to sell. So the type of transactions we're seeing are like truly people who are having life-changing events, and there's still a lot of that business out there that's available to go get, because at the end of the day, job changes, divorce, death, marriage, birth, crime or whatever these days, people moving out of state. So it used to be just title can pull up a whole neighborhood, just how long they live there. We'll get creative, and within that, helping you maybe see who's most likely to sell. That's been kind of a popular newer way that title can reduce a big area into a smaller one that you can like more effectively work, because you don't want to spread yourself too thin out there. But if you have like a good group of 1,000 or under instead of 5,000, then you can hit them up more. So the most likely to sell list has been really good. But then if you add in the life-changing events, all the title companies, and we more or less created it because we have this great program called Fidelity Total Farm, and we add in a third-party company that provides all of these life-changing events, and it kind of automatically alerts you. So you can take any area and find out, where some of those things I mentioned, where they're happening, and then you can do your creative marketing, handwritten note, cold call, email, door knock, maybe a little social media marketing, and get creative.
Yeah, I think some people are, I think this is an industry and this is a time where people have to think outside the box.
Oh, big time.
And were you at the wildlife down in downtown?
Yeah.
When John, was I.
I couldn't get in, but I was,
I wasn't able to get in, but I was there.
Yeah.
And I happened to see Rainey.
Right.
And she and I were
was right next to
talking.
them.
And she said, this is the time of year like in the industry where thinking outside the box will really keep agents in the business. Because if you're not thinking outside the box, if you're not thinking of like the multitude of ways that you could potentially bring in business, whether it's being a little bit more creative with your marketing, leaning onto escrow officers, title reps,
right.
It's more of like, and this is sort of like what we were talking about prior to getting on the podcast with like the wife and being in service. It's like, It's almost like being in service to another person, which is like reaching out to a title rep. Hey, how can we work together?
Right.
How could we work together with this? But now going back to the wildlife, I do want to bring up one of the specific things that's currently going on in Los Angeles, and that's ULA.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a ULA tax, and like in a nutshell, just to familiarize those that are listening, is that it is when a transaction of a home is over 5 million, between 5 and 10 million, you're being taxed at 4%. And if the home is more than 10%, is a 5.5% increase, and that's over 10 million.
Yeah.
And it almost put like a complete like slowdown
100%.
in the ultra luxury.
Yeah.
But even in the 5 million market, that in LA, that's still a marketable price for families.
Yeah, it's crazy, this mansion tax, how it artificially did a couple things. It started in April, and there was a mad rush up until April 1 to close as many deals over 5 million in the city of LA as possible. So we saw a record month of closings take place in March, which is crazy, but there's not been a more stressful month than that March of this year compared to any other year in real estate. And then boom, flip-flop April, there were like a total of, I think, under 9 sales, whereas the previous month there was like 131. So it's brought down the luxury market by over 75%, I would say, which just by an artificial tax that they created, it just completely kind of leveled that market. And it's interesting because I thought, okay, in the beginning, that would be the initial reaction, kind of shock and awe, no sales. Next month in May, okay, it went up like double, which was a little bit of a positive sign. And then like June, it went up a little bit more. So we thought, okay, this is what we expected. But then after June, it just kind of like flatlined. It's like there's been 3 consecutive months of sales, 25 sales for each month, over 5 million. Whereas it should be over like 50 sales or 60 sales per month. So it's taking a big hit.
I mean, that they thought that they were going to make 100 million, and they
right.
ended up making 4 million. I don't know if the figures that I'm
Extreme
getting
backfire.
But it's close
Extreme
to it.
Yes.
And now can you put us up to date, because now the voting is in November and then they're going to put it on the ballot.
Right. So there's so many different things happening with Measure ULA and kind of the fight against it. You have all the there's 2 main lawsuits, and now we're starting to talk about like next year's ability to try and like vote and have a say on it. So with the lawsuits, there's a 3rd new judge that was put into place, which is actually good, because the 2nd judge, that would not have been good to have that person decide over this case. But once they put in a new judge, she needed time, obviously, to catch up on a case that was just dropped on her, a big case. So they took this huge court date off the calendar, which was supposed to be, I think this September 26th, is it? So they vacated that date. We don't have a new date. All the law firms are expecting it in the next 2 months to be put back on the calendar. And so that'll be good, because then this new judge, she can look at the case, the merits of each side, and then kind of make her decision. And then after that, it's going to go down another road with an appeal, and then maybe another road. So there's still a lot more time to go with that. But what you were talking about in November, there is going to be an opportunity to vote on that ballot next year, which is under the Tax Protection and Government Accountability Act. So that was created where if there's a majority of vote of 2/3, then ULA can go back on the ballot the following year. So confusing, but then in 2025, and then if enough people know what they're voting on, they can be more educated on what the mansion tax is, then the real decision can be made on that, because the first time no one really knew what they were voting for.
And I think that a lot of people aren't familiar with it, and they don't have a lot of knowledge to it, because they either look at it as like, oh, it's the wealthy people being taxed.
To fix homeless.
But I mean, but that's also like certain people who haven't been voted into office and they wanted to clean up the homeless,
right?
But that's still going on, so it's almost like a double-edged sword, because it's like, well, something is trying to be done, and now it's being taxed, and it's not turning into something positive.
Yeah, there's really been nothing positive about the mansion tax. I mean, it's not worked since they started in April. They cannot use the money. They say they can use the money because I guess the city council came to a vote. We can use the money, but they haven't gone in there yet, because I guess there was like a surprise grant from the state giving them money to go towards homeless and tenant eviction and everything that they were going to go into the mansion pool and use. So they actually didn't have to go into this pool. So we don't really know when they'll try and go back in that little treasure chest, but they're not supposed to until it reaches 150 million in collected taxes. And that could be like another year before they get to that 150 million.
Now, have you noticed agents reaching out to you and saying, have you seen, can you pull expired for me? That's over 10 million. Can you pull Bel Air, a specific radius off of this street? Like, are you seeing that from agents, or are they just kind of like at like a standstill?
I'm seeing agents being extremely turned off from trying to work the high end because they know how costly it will be. So unless they get like a super motivated, realistic seller that's willing to unload it, great. But if they're just want business, put their name attached to a big property, then yeah, there's people that will take advantage of that because there'll be more of those listings that may not sell, but it's an opportunity for the agent to help try and sell it. And if they don't, they were at least being able to market themselves in the luxury world. So that's, I think, where the opportunity is for, like, you know, maybe newer agents who haven't had that big listing and, you know.
I mean, I would do something like
Yeah.
that. I would just do something
I tell
like that.
people all the time, I mean,
The thing is just the advantage.
your name attached to a big listing can
Yep.
go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just try to take advantage and not in always in a like an intentional
Yeah.
way. There's always intention
Right.
why I'm doing something, and I would just be like, well, I can market it, and also I can farm my area
Totally.
with mailers or whatever
Right.
it is. Like I think that there's like a good to it.
Yeah.
As opposed to like,
Well, listen, at the end of the day, that's the only chance they have of selling it if it's on MLS and listed with an agent. So you're there to sell it. At the same time, we're in a marketing business, and so, like, if you have leverage and credibility because your name's attached to something, by all means, agents should be leveraging that. You know.
And do you notice? Do you actually? I was watching something that you were talking about on your Instagram, and you were actually not enforcing, but you were talking about the importance of putting homes into trust,
Oh yeah.
into LLCs. Can you talk about like the specifics of why it's so important?
Yeah.
And just the suggestions and advice that you're giving your clients or agents
Yeah.
or friends in general to do that?
I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I really procrastinated, like 6+ years procrastinated into putting my own property into my trust because I never had a trust. And I just, like, I always put myself last. I always take care of business first, kids, wife, and then, like, okay, I really need to create a trust. I really need to do this, but it takes time. You have to, you know, the average trust costs about $2,500 to create with an attorney. And I knew I'd get to it at some point, but never did. So I finally did it at the beginning of this year, and it was like an instant relief I felt as soon as my attorney notarized it. And it's one of those things where, like, you don't plan to fail, you just fail to plan. Wait, did I say that right? You
Yes.
don't? Okay.
Yeah.
So I see it all the time. California is called a probate state. So if the head of household has the property in their name and not a trust or entity like an LLC or corporation, and they pass away, the state actually takes over and decides what will happen with that property and that whole person's estate. So there's been, like, example stories for people to try and learn from. I think Michael Jackson was one of them. I think Prince was one of them.
Wait, can you give the story?
Yeah, I think with Prince, when he died, he never did any estate planning, and then it turned into siblings, because he never had any children, I don't think, fighting over his estate and, like, licensing rights to songs and, like, the whole 9 yards. And then it was so ugly. It was just like public, you know, media information, gossip to read about all the time. And the same thing happened to a certain extent with Michael Jackson. You hear these nightmare stories, and, like, doesn't matter how wealthy people are, people just assume everything will be fine, and they don't think in the future after they die. But I see it all the time in transactions where it's like we're in escrow, and sometimes, like, the seller has passed and it was only in the seller's name, and that seller has like 4 kids, and the kids think, okay, you know, we knew our parent was going to die, but now we'll take over, you know, we'll figure it out. No, you can't do that. Like, it has to now go to probate court. You have to get an attorney. That could take several months to 6 months. The state will take a percentage of that. Like, then the kids start fighting with each other. Like, having a trust outlines every specific thing that will take place if, God forbid, something happens.
And I think that's where in like a transaction, like if I'm representing a buyer or if an agent is representing a buyer, being able to say, hey, it would be a suggestion to put it into a trust.
Oh, big time.
Because and then they would have to reach out to a real estate
Yeah.
attorney. But making those suggestions, a lot of times they appreciate it, and they don't
big
know
time.
the steps that they have to take. And a lot of times, if they're a lot newer, like maybe it's a family that, they don't come from money,
Right.
and they just want to put their home into a trust.
Right.
What are the specifics that they would have to go about? Does it cost them anything?
Right.
Do they have to put anything on the title aside from reaching out to a real estate attorney?
Yeah, I think there must be some shortcut ways. You could probably go to like a legal Zoom and pull up a template for a trust and probably give it a stab yourself at putting something together. And then whatever that looks like, the key component is you actually need to transfer the property into the trust. And that is another step. I can't tell you how many people have not done or forgot to have finished. So if you do a trust and you put in all this work and you don't do the last part, it still kind of can get to the probate courts and it doesn't go down smoothly.
Who's responsible for that? The agent, the
No,
title rep,
it's always
the
the
escrow
owners.
officer? Okay.
Always the owners. But I think for anyone out there that just wants to like at least like not have to worry about it, is you just go create some kind of easy plug and play trust you found online, create the name for it, transfer your property into it, and that's pretty easy to do, very minimal in cost. And then afterwards you can work on building out the trust, the details of it. Like if I pass, then this happens. If my wife passes, then this happens. If something happens to the house or this, like all these questions that you get asked by the attorney, which I think that was kind of one of the reasons I, in the back of my mind, avoided it. It's because I just knew I had to sit there for an hour or two and just be asked questions you don't really want to have to like think about.
There's a lot of people that they'll say, oh, I'll take care of it later, and they don't
Oh
take
my
care of it
gosh,
later.
yeah.
But there are the few people that say, I'll take care of it later,
Right.
and they do take care of it later.
Right.
Can you take care of it later? Can you take title on the house and
yeah.
5 years,
It's never
however
too
many
late.
years, say
Never
like,
too late.
Dad gets sick, and you're like, you know what, let's do this.
Let's do it now. Absolutely.
Can you do it like 5 years, 10 years down the road?
It's never too late. You can
Okay.
do it like up until people pass away.
Oh, okay.
Honestly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. When I asked you to come onto the podcast, you were like, "Oh my God, do I get to tell a cool story?" And I was like, "Well, you can do whatever you want, but I mean, if you want to tell a cool story." So, but I know the story because you told me, and I found it to be pretty cool, just because it's explaining title and the benefit of title reps. And title reps that have the experience that you
Right.
do, and they're able to put out a fire. So can you share the story that you shared with me?
Yeah, I mean, title can get boring and no one really wants to talk title or they want to talk properties and like views and who's buying it, who's selling it. So every now and then we have some cool stories behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, a property cannot sell unless the title company approves it to sell, because our job is to like pass clean title to the buyer. Any buyer would not purchase a property unless there's clean title. So the war story that we were talking about the other day, it is agency related, and this took place years ago, maybe like 6-7 years ago, when Mauricio had a huge opportunity. He had a big listing in Malibu on Sweetwater Mesa, and it was a lot of drama that created that listing, not related to any agents, but just the Department of Justice here, the Department of Justice in Nigeria. And the cool story that Mauricio has told several times is how he got that listing, which we talk about door knocking and cold calling, but I think he even flew to another country to go talk to people to get that listing.
How much was it for?
So I think it was originally listed over $30 million, and it was out there in open market, and it ended up selling to a group that Mauricio put together. So that was a nice sale on the first leg of 30 something million. But this is such a special property. It was one that you can flip into a masterpiece, which is what he ended up doing. And so that was the plan. Great property, fix it up, flip it in a nice way. And after they had the property ready to resell, that's when we get the call. Hey, Brandon, Tamara, Fidelity, let's get a new prelim going. You guys helped us close the first one. Now this is, the final masterpiece. So we do our job. We pull up a preliminary title report, which is always what title companies do. And then all of a sudden we see, as we're looking and reviewing, we're like, oh, there's a couple of these new deeds of ownership that were tagged on the property, recorded on the property. So we go to Mauricio and company and like, who are these LLCs that are on the title? And then we all take a look and we're like, we have no effing idea who they are. Who are they?
Curse on here.
So, okay, we can? Okay. They had no fucking idea what. Kind of felt good to say that. So.
It helps with the views.
It does. So we look at the deed and we kind of, even in the beginning as we were looking at it, just looked very funny. There was, I think, even like a chicken scratch on there. And we now know the reason why, because it was the P.O. box, which is the mailing address, was in Topanga Canyon, which, it's kind of that eclectic little area where there's like farmers and stuff. So like it literally could have had like a little chicken footprint on it because those are the things happening on Topanga. So it's just very unusual. The signature's off, but it was recorded. And so it created what we call a cloud on the title, because Mauricio and Company is not the current owner, but these new deeds transferring it to some random LLC happens to be the new owners. So title insurance, we cover everything up until closing, but anything that happens afterwards is kind of like a discretionary call. And in fact, title companies are not obligated to cover it, which is why you hear all these advertisements on the radio about title lock, like protect your title. You want a title credit alert, we'll let you know if anyone has changed or fudged your title. So we don't have to, title doesn't cover that normally. So we saw it, and the way it works in LA is, okay, if there's a questionable deed and it needs to be removed because it shouldn't be on there, you have two choices. Either the person who put it on there easily removes it just like they put it on there, or you wait for the courts to have a quiet title issued where a judge says, let me look at it, oh yeah, that's bogus. They'll expunge it and then we can remove it. But that can take 8 months. So they just listed it again. They have a hot new buyer, billionaire Chinese gal from China, and then like things were moving real fast, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, how do we close this deal, because we have two deeds which we have to vet out and find out what it's all about. And so long story short, there were like criminal enterprises out there that look for opportunities to cloud the title, with them very well knowing that if they cloud the title, that property most likely cannot sell unless they take it off or they go through the legal motion, which takes months, and then you probably lose a buyer. So there's a lot of pressure all of a sudden on Fidelity Title saying, hey guys, can you remove that? Can you do us a favor? Solid, like, we need to close this deal. It's not often you have many $69 million buyers.
Are they
for that
trying
new
to
prop.
pay you to do this?
So this criminal enterprise, they were literally extorting the parties in order for them to remove their deeds that they put on it. So it was a crazy situation. No one saw it coming. These people have a history apparently of doing it up and down California on high-end transactions, and the good news is down the road we caught them in the act doing another one, and we were able to play a role with the FBI and a little sting operation to get them and stop them. So that ended up happening, but we made an executive decision on behalf of like Mauricio and the relationship we were kind of just forming at the time, and we wanted to solidify that with him and the agency, saying, okay, you know what, we're not going to make any money on this deal regardless of how high the title fee is, because the legal fees that would have to go into ensuring that deal and removing and expunging those deeds would cost over $200,000-$300,000. Or if those wild deeds were actually real and accurate, and those people happen to be the owners, even though we know they really weren't, we would have closed a deal that we'd have to rewind, and we would potentially be at a $30 million loss. So that was the major risk why title was initially saying, no, we can't do that. And then there was a lot of internal pushing with me and my manager and Tamara, my partner, and we made it happen. So long story short, we took on all the risk. We said, okay, we're guaranteeing clean title to the buyer. You guys close your transaction. We'll deal with the mess, which we had to deal with for several months. They successfully closed it. Everyone was happy. The higher ups at Fidelity, they're biting their nails trying to figure this out, and they, got these guys because they were crooks, and they were able to basically get the job done, but also help put them in jail.
Wow.
Yeah.
That should be your motto, like gets the job done.
Get the job done.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was, it wasn't cool at the time. It was super stressful, a lot of pressure, but in the end, I mean, there was a lot of high-fiving, celebrating, storytelling, everything.
How do you manage stress? I know you and your wife are really into like wellness, and I'm very into wellness. Like, how do you manage stress? Like, do you bring it home? Do you leave it at the work?
That's a good question. I mean, we all stress. I've always felt like I handle stress pretty well, but I have to work out at least 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. And so after having kids, my workout went from like before I could do it at the end of the day to now like early in the morning. This morning I was on my Peloton, and like
what time?
I think it was on like at 7.
Oh, okay. 7
Were you on
is
the same
okay.
time? Okay.
No, I was not. I was
sleeping. Right. And so like it's all about the mental release, getting those endorphins in there, and I swear it'll break through anything. And then an hour after I've had my coffee, I can just take on the world. So if I don't have that beginning of the day to do that, then it makes it real challenging to get through it. I mean, I get through it no matter what, but like I rather not have to like stress through it when I can just like confidently know it's gonna get the job done.
Do you also feel as if it like, because you take that time to yourself, it shows up in a positive way as a dad, as a husband?
I it's always been the mental release, so I can go be a better husband, better dad, more positive out in the field, not like feel tired or dragged down. And I have those moments, I mean, but it's like I have my routine, I stick to it religiously, and I always make time for it. So
I'm all about a routine.
Oh yeah.
I
need a routine.
Yeah, routine and putting everything in the calendar.
Oh yeah.
It like just keeps my brain like stable.
I didn't realize you can on your iPhone, like talk to Siri, go set alarm for 1 hour to do a podcast with Jessica, and literally that 1 hour alarm will say Jessica Fury podcast.
Yay!
Like so, like I just started that like 2 months ago. It's been the best.
Oh, that's cool. I don't do that on my phone, but I do that with Alexa. I'll say,
Alexa,
set the timer for such and such.
My kids fight over Alexa. We'll put a song on, start dancing. Another kid will be like, no, I want my song on. I want my... And then, like, it's just like a shit show.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's
Brandon,
fun.
Thank you so much for being
pleasure.
here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I
cool.
think you have such a great way of doing business, and I think that if people, they know you... I mean, I said this at the beginning. You are the person who is, like, always there. I'm all about, like, being in many different places. I do ask all my guests 3 questions before I leave, but I think you already answered one of them. What is a non-negotiable in your morning routine that sets you up for the day?
does I have to have a coffee no matter what count?
Whatever.
Yeah, I hate to say I'm so dependent on it, but I need like my 1 cup of coffee and workout.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
So I rarely ever have to cancel things because I started early enough. But if I have to fight with my wife because she's like, I need you to do this, I'll fight with my wife over it. So
Well, you're not fighting with her.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys,
yeah.
you have a good relationship. Can you leave the listeners with a piece of advice or suggestion that they can apply to their daily routine, their business, and or relationship?
I definitely think balance is necessary. I see agents work way too hard and they just work, but don't like do anything for themselves. And that includes maybe not working out, not going on little weekend vacation. So it's good to work hard, but it's also good to have fun and take that trip. I think agents and anyone in general, including myself, you can't take things personal. You know, I learned that in the beginning. My feelings were so hurt and title because I was like, wait, I thought we were friends. But like after like 3 years, I had like an aha moment. And once you get past that, it's not personal. It helps that mentality, whether it works or not, it helps relieve a lot of things.
I like that.
Yeah.
Not taking it personal. I was door knocking and somebody
Oh yeah,
yelled at
especially
me
for
and
door
dropped
knocking.
somebody yelled at me, slammed the door on me, and I went to my car and cried.
I mean, that's the thing. We're human, so we're gonna take it personal. But if it's like if you keep telling yourself enough times, it just softens the blow. You know, like instead of crying for 5 minutes and maybe a one minute cry. You know.
That was my only time crying after
I like
door
it.
knocking.
Crying feels good. If I see a good movie and it makes me cry, like I swear to God, I feel so good afterwards. It's like, whoa, what just happened?
What are 3 qualities of yourself that peers would say about you?
I'm a connector, so people randomly reach out to me, mostly not title related, saying, "How do you do this?" or "Who do you know can do that?" So I connect people, and it just falls in my lap, but it makes me feel good because when I can help people, that's at the end of the day always been. I'm a giver. At the end of the day, I think people are going to mostly say I'm a giver, and I think mostly people are going to say I'm positive and happy. So, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Brandon, where can people find you? Plug yourself.
All right. So, I do Instagram a lot, but you can do at B4 Title, like the letter B, the number 4 Title, or you can just Brandon-Miller.net.
And you're with
Fidelity Title. Yeah,
Fidelity
I always forget
Title.
to say that.
You guys can follow me at Jessica J. Fury, at Jessica Fury Real Estate, and follow the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Dumb Girl Podcast. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.